Glad you're here. Welcome to Models and Agents, episode 111 for July 14th, 2026. There's signal and noise in AI every day. Let's get to the signal. Mistral just shipped an 8B embodied navigation model that lets robots follow plain language instructions using only a single RGB camera. Mistral released Robostral Navigate, an 8B model that reaches 76.6% success on R2 RCE validation unseen without LiDAR or depth sensors. Anthropic published new research showing Claude's expressed values shift measurably across models and languages along 4 axes. Simon Willison shared practical caching recipes and a dataset-based UI for running complex SQL-TIE queries in the browser. Builders should watch how these narrow domain models and value mapping techniques affect agent reliability this week. Mistral AI introduced Robostral Navigate, an 8B embodied navigation model that takes plain language instructions and moves a robot using only a single RGB camera. The system reaches 76.6% success on the R2 RCE validation unseen split through a combination of pointing method, prefix caching training, and SciSpo online reinforcement learning. It removes the need for LiDAR or depth sensors, lowering hardware requirements for mobile robots in indoor environments. Developers working on warehouse or home robots can now test language-driven navigation on lighter platforms without specialized perception hardware. Watch for follow-up releases that extend the same approach to manipulation or multi-room planning. This development fits the ongoing narrowing of the performance gap between open-weight models and closed frontier systems. Anthropic released research showing Claude expresses over 3,000 distinct values that cluster along 4 axes. The axes are deference versus caution, warmth versus rigor, depth versus brevity, and candor versus execution. Differences between models remain modest overall, yet Sonnet 4.6 trends more playful and affirming, while Opus 4.7 leans toward candid critique. The same models shift noticeably by language, favoring warmth in Hindi and Arabic and rigor in Russian. The work gives teams a concrete way to measure and potentially steer value expression in production agents. Researchers detail workload-driven optimizations for a 0.6 BLMT model running English to traditional Chinese subtitle translation under batch size 1, low latency constraints on Apple M2 Metal, replacing the original 151,000 token vocabulary with a 64,000 token subtitle domain tokenizer, and applying embedding calibration plus full supervised fine-tuning yields a 1.63 times speedup. The resulting local subs model achieves a 59.2% tie-excluded win rate against Google Translate on a 500 example Open Subtitles 2024 subset. A 6-category taxonomy applied to 30,000 chain-of-thought traces across 5 models from 3B to 14B reveals that NF4 quantization preserves task accuracy yet shifts failure modes in size-dependent ways. Hollow convergence drops sharply for the smallest models, while shortcut collapse rises from 44% to 78% of errors in LLMA 3.23b. GS8000 stays largely unaffected, while LogiQA and ARC Challenge show the largest changes. A fine-tuned system combining expert context engineering and hindsight-guided reasoning traces predicts outcomes of announced M&A deals across 42 countries. On more than 400 out-of-sample large deals, it reduces class-balanced Breyer score to 0.151. Beating calibrated market-implied probabilities by 24% and frontier language models by 25 to 42%. RootRec compares request-level hard selection against item-level learned aggregation across 4 traditional recommender agents plus 1 LLM re-ranker on MovieLens 1M. Hard selection stays below BM25, while gated all-agent aggregation reaches HR at 10 of 0.295 at 70.2% LLM call rate. The study shows request-level choice of 1 complete agent list is too coarse for sparse fixed candidate settings. A frozen GPT 5.4 agent tested against Brave, Tavali, and Firecrawl on 100 SEAL QA hard questions shows nearly identical answer accuracy yet sharply different evidence economies. Brave supplies gold answer-rich snippets, Tavali concentrates gold URLs at rank 1, and Firecrawl drives broader exploration. Surface contradiction to gold URL ratios range from 0.92 to 2.59 across providers. Poly Interview generates role-specific questions from a job description and CV, runs multi-turn spoken interviews with a lip-synced digital human, and produces 13 behavior-level features aggregated into 10 assessment aspects. 10 experts rated its question plans and actionable feedback highly. 93.7% of generated questions align more closely with the matched job description than cross-role alternatives. The platform is publicly accessible and already contains 1,564 sessions. Simon Willison published a TIL showing how to run UVX tool-name in GitHub Actions while keeping downloads cache-friendly. The recipe avoids fetching a fresh package copy on every run. Willison released a custom HTML plus JS minimap view for DoomQL, a ray tracer implemented entirely as a CL-Quilite recursive CTE. The interface runs on Dataset Apps, a new plugin that hosts custom HTML plus JS applications with direct SQL access to the underlying CL-Quilite database. CLIR Bench supplies 6,600 QA instances over 11 clinical variables, drawn from de-identified ICU records, each linked to explicit temporal evidence and task-specific derivation rules. Existing generalist models struggle to retrieve and reason over the sparse, asynchronous observations. Test Robostral, navigate on a simulated robot or simple mobile platform if you're exploring language-driven navigation without depth sensors. Run Simon Willison's UVX caching pattern in one of your GitHub Actions workflows to measure CI time savings. Evaluate Sklesel Bench against your current clinical QA setup to see where generalist models lose temporal grounding. Compare Brave, Tavali, and Firecrawl retrieval traces on your own agent queries to map evidence cost versus answer quality. Apply the 4 value axes from Anthropic's study to prompts in different languages and observe tone shifts in your agent outputs. Continued releases of narrow domain embodied models following Mistral's RGB-only approach. More labs publishing internal value mapping frameworks after Anthropic's public release. Wider adoption of item-level aggregation techniques in production recommender agents. Additional on-device tokenizer and vocabulary pruning studies, targeting subtitle and short-form domains. Okay, let's pop the hood on quantization. Everyone talks about post-training quantization as a simple size and speed win. In practice, it quietly rewires how models traverse reasoning paths, even when final accuracy numbers stay flat. The core mechanism is that lower precision weights change which intermediate tokens the model treats as high-confidence stepping stones. On smaller models, this often collapses shortcut failures upward while reducing hollow but correct-looking chains. Above roughly 12B parameters, the effect flattens because the model has more redundant pathways to the same conclusion. The practical trade-off is roughly 1 to 3 points of accuracy for a 2 to 4 times memory reduction. Yet the hidden cost appears in domains that rely on verifiable multi-step logic rather than pattern matching. When deploying quantized models, run a lightweight failure mode audit on a 500 example subset of your actual workload instead of trusting headline benchmarks. Before we go, keep an eye on follow-up embodied releases that extend Robostral Navigate to manipulation tasks. That wraps up today's AI briefing. Share this with a developer or builder who wants to stay current. Subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nera Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nera Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen, Tesla Shorts Time, your daily deep dive into everything Tesla. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. Want the written briefing with source links? Each show keeps a summaries page on naranetwork.com, scannable, dated, and free. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.